Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to the Powerstroke swap series. This is episode number 6. It's been a few days since I got the last video posted. Episode 5, we got the 460 out of the truck and the transmission, and then we started getting the Powerstroke installed. So I'm sure you've already noticed by now that we have the core support just kind of set in place. And we got a bunch of stuff here all hooked up on the engine. So instead of me going through and giving a step-by-step of how I installed everything, I figured it'd just be a lot easier if I kind of put everything in. I ran into a couple little fights and struggles along the way, so I figured it'd be easier for me to just kind of explain what problems I was having and running into, instead of basically filming my way going through it. So I'll kind of show you guys that now. All right, so starting here on the driver's side, we got everything installed. You can see I got the ECM installed. I got the IDM in there. Being that we're running the 4-inch intake, it's going to come over to here. There's no place to mount the ambient air temperature sensor. So what I ended up doing here is I just got a little Adele clamp, and I clamped it into where the old air box used to attach. And it's just perfect for holding this air temperature sensor in there. It's snug but not tight, so I don't have to worry about it falling out. And you can see the end of the sensor there is actually still open, so the element's going to get an accurate reading. We got the battery trays installed. We got some of our intercooler piping here mocked up. We got the radiator hoses on. I got the wire harness just kind of draped over here. Same with the battery cable ones. They're all just kind of set on here. We got all of our belts on. Down here we got our battery cables hooked up. We got the transmission lines mounted. Our passenger side, we got the other battery box installed. One of the things you do have to switch, the tool that is for the spare tire jack, was actually flipped from a gas power to a diesel, so we ended up transferring this bracket over. We got our degas bottle installed. I ended up getting a new washer bottle. The one that I had was cracked. Got all of our wiring all ran up through. The mat sensor actually sits in the same location, and I switched out the AC lines from the gas truck to the diesel because they are actually shaped different on the gas engine. The lines hook up differently on the back of the compressor. We got the turbo installed. There was a few little struggles that I had on this. I did actually go, and where this downpipe runs down, I did dimple the firewall back, but you can kind of see right down in here it's almost touching the firewall. There's only about an 1/8 inch of clearance or so. I was really kind of struggling with that. I mean, the right thing I guess I should have done was figured out a way of pushing that back. What I did instead was actually cut the V-band mount off, reposition the pipe, and then I welded this back up. So that way the pipe originally kind of came out more at an angle. When I repositioned it, I put it a little bit more straight. You know, you get downfall to that, you know, I got more clearance from the firewall, but it did move it a little bit closer to the transmission. But again, it's not touching, so I think it's going to be okay. Everything else engine wise was really straightforward. We're able to just kind of bolt it in and go with it. So I did get everything here with the transmission and transfer case and the rear drive shaft all back together. The problem I'm running into now that I haven't quite corrected yet is where the drive shaft attaches onto the transfer case on the front. Being that this is an F350, it has a double cardan joint coming off of the transfer case. The yoke is different. It's actually smaller, and I'll show you what I'm talking about here. All right, so this is the transfer case that we took out. This is a Borg Warner 1356, and this right here is the yoke that you need to bolt it up to a double cardan joint. The transfer case we put in is a 4407. This is the yoke that comes off of that one on an F250, where it does not run the double cardan joint. So as you can see, the bolt holes don't line up. There's about 3/8 of an inch difference from one side to the other. So when you try and bolt this to the drive shaft, you run into a problem where nothing wants to line up. It just doesn't fit. Being that we're coming into summer, I'm not going to have any snow. I really don't have to have the four-wheel drive working right now. So I'm probably just going to hold off on this here for a little while and make sure that I get all of the other bugs worked out of the truck before I go spending the money to do this transfer case, you know, before I get it functioning. So that's pretty much it. I mean, we got the exhaust system all installed. The one that I had on the donor truck is a super cab. This one again being crew cab. We had to add some pipe in. So this pipe here I actually got from Summit Racing. I just cut right here and I took this flange off, welded in a new section of pipe. It was actually a 4-foot long section, and then we just butted up the rest of the exhaust system to it. So I do still need to go through and mount all the hangers, but I kind of like the way it came out. It clears real nice between the transfer case, the frame, and the way that it comes out the back there is really nice. So I have my buddy is sandblasting the tip right now, and then we're going to powder coat it gloss black when I'm all done. But pretty much that's where we're at. That's what I've been doing the last couple days, and I figured it'd be a lot quicker and easier to just explain it that way. So let's get this intercooler installed. So this right here is the intercooler that I got. It's a CSF brand replacement for a Super Duty. It's actually pretty nice in construction. These are all aluminum end tanks. It has all the mounting points for the factory location, and it has really nice big cast 3-inch outlets on it. So this should work perfect for what we're going to do. What I'm going to work on next, I'll get this intercooler back out of the way, and I'm going to take the grinder and just clean up all of my markings. And then I think what I'm going to do is set the radiator in it and the condenser, and then I want to put the intercooler back on one more time just to get like a final check to make sure all my measurements of what I'm thinking is going to work will actually work. So we got our condenser in and mounted, our radiator is in and mounted. So now I'm just going to drop that intercooler in one last time and check what my clearance here is, and then see how much room I have behind it to make sure that I can fit that transmission cooler. So what I just realized, I'm trying to put the intercooler in, I'm catching on this very corner of the radiator. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull these bolts out, I'm going to pop the clip out, and I'm going to come back through here with the Sawzall, and I'm just going to cut this corner of this radiator off. It's actually like that here on both sides. So we'll do that, and then we'll try and test fit this again. Okay guys, so we got the transmission cooler here kind of just set into place. This is ideally where I'm thinking about mounting it. Now, Obviously this isn't its permanent mount, it's just held in with 2 zip ties. I'm just kind of using it to get its location. The other thing that I did when I got this apart is I took these brackets back off and I just completely flattened them on both sides. It pulls this condenser in a little bit closer. I've got about 1/4 inch of clearance on the back side here. You can see I can fit my whole hand back here. I've got probably 1 inch, maybe close to 1.5 inches on that top side. Now I am going to have to go and clearance this out here a little bit. It's not touching yet. I've got, I mean, paper thickness clearance here, so I'm going to go back through and just cut this out. I'm going to do that when I get everything torn apart though, so I can make a nice clean cut and give me plenty of clearance on here. But essentially what that did is it let me pull this back about another 3/8 of an inch, and it's going to keep it behind that core support, so it's going to give me a little bit more room here for the transmission cooler and the intercooler to fit. And then the other thing that I did is I got my other header panel here. This is the one that I got out of the donor truck. It's identical to the one that I took off of here, and I already did the cut. So you can see I cut it here in the middle and on the end. Just kind of did some rough cuts with the Sawzall and just kind of chopped that thing down to see what we got. So I'm gonna put the intercooler back up on here, and we're gonna test fit the header panel one more time and then see how much room we actually got. Okay, so now you can see that we got this header panel installed, and making those cuts actually made a huge difference here. Look how much room we have between this panel and the intercooler. I've got probably an 1.5 inches at the very closest point, and then back here where it was touching the intercooler right here, I've now got close to 2 inches. So tons of room there. It's the same on this side and even back here. And I think once I get the grill installed, because the grill just sits in these 2 little pockets right here, and then there's a screw here, and then everything else screws in here along the top. So I should have enough strength and rigidity to this to where I'm not going to have to worry about that thing falling out or breaking. So I think I'm pretty happy with that. What I'm going to do now from here, tear everything down. I'm going to take all the parts off. We're going to get the radiator, the condenser, everything's coming out. We're going to take the radiator, or excuse me, the core support here back out. I'm going to clean it and I'm going to paint it because I don't like this whole red look to it, and then being silver across the top here, it just kind of bothers me. It doesn't match. So I got some just generic white paint, and I'm going to paint it up here to make it kind of match. Right guys, so I got the core support all cleaned, degreased, hosed down, dried. It's ready to paint. I kind of moved it back here into the garage because it's actually kind of windy outside, and this is going to be a mess trying to paint it because the paint's going to blow everywhere. So this is what we ended up with. Everything here came out pretty darn clean. I just used some mild degreaser and a garden hose. You can see everything in here a whole bunch better than it was. At least it's clean enough now to where paint will stick to it. I mean, obviously it doesn't have to be perfect. You can tell from the factory, you can still see all the primer where they never even put paint down. So really what I'm going to do is just put a little bit of primer on where I cut. And then I'm just going to kind of hit it with a little bit of matte white and then flip it, and then we're going to paint the other side of it to match. All right, guys. Well, think I'm gonna call this right here done. I'm pretty happy with the way it looks. Like I say, it's nothing super fancy. It's just some gloss white spray paint, just to kind of make it match the rest of the truck. But I think it's gonna look pretty much perfect for what its purpose is going to be. I mean, obviously, if I was painting the truck, I wouldn't be using Krylon, and I wouldn't just be spraying it on and not really caring about little imperfections and dust and if there's runs and all that kind of stuff. But you know, the way that these roll through the factory, they're basically bolted onto the truck. They set them right up on here, they roll them through, and then just kind of hit and spray. So you can even see what I'm talking about here, where as it rolls down the assembly line, the sprayers just spray through the openings, and what gets painted gets painted. It's one of the reasons why certain areas, you can see this right here is mostly bare metal. They don't even paint it before they put it on. It's just kind of how stuff gets assembled. So that's what I'm saying. This is going to work out perfectly for what we're doing. So I'm going to let that sit overnight, and then probably tomorrow when I get home from work, I can set it back on here, and we can start kind of making things final here. I can finally get the harnesses here routed, and I can get the hoses starting to get hooked up, and we can just get this thing here one more step to completion. So I'm gonna call it quits for tonight, and I'll be back tomorrow. All right, guys, so I'm back. Had my day at work, and I'm ready to get back on this this Powerstroke here. So I did have a little bit of time this morning, and I threw the core support on. I was really excited about it. I just saw it sitting here in the garage, and I just kind of let my anxiety get the best of me. So I threw it on. It actually looks killer. I'm really happy with the way that the paint and the finish came out. It's not over gloss, it's not under gloss. It looks about like it would if it was a factory kind of a thing. So pretty much where I'm at right now, because I just real quickly threw the battery cable and the engine wire harness back on, just kind of keep it from sagging. So what I'm going to work on now is we'll get the the radiator and the fan shroud put on. I want to get the condenser put in, and then I want to start getting the transmission cooler fit in. I did end up just grabbing a mount kit for it. Once I can get all that in, then I can go through and kind of finish making the brackets for the intercooler, and then start putting the front of the truck all back on. So let's get going on that. Alright guys, so finally we got our radiator in, got the hoses hooked up. I still got to do the heater hoses. I need to get a little bit longer hose. This one here isn't quite long enough, and yeah, we're going to deal with that a little bit later though. But for right now, radiator's in, it's all bolted up, another step closer to being done. So now what I'm going to work on is getting the transmission cooler installed. Okay guys, so it's been like a day since I got the radiator installed. I actually had some stuff that happened that night. I never got a chance to really work on it all that much. I went back late in the night and I worked on some of it, but it was dark. The lighting wasn't really coming out very well. So I just went ahead and took care of a couple of things, and worked on it a little bit this morning before I went to work. So let me show you where I'm at with it now. So we got, again, the radiator and condenser in. Now I got the transmission cooler installed. And really the way I went about doing this is I just used an Adele clamp coming off of this lower mount. I had it spaced out here with some washers, so that way nothing's touching here. I got good clearance. And then I added another Adele clamp right here. I'm not a huge fan of these little push-in zip ties, but I needed something just to kind of help pull this back. So I just put one just through the condenser. I don't think I'm going to have any issues with it, but this thing it's on there nice and solid. I'm not going to have to worry about it flopping around. And then I had to get new transmission cooler line, so I do still need to go through and secure this and support it here a little bit, so that way it doesn't rub through on the core support. But that's in. So The other thing that I was able to get done is I was able to stop and get some radiator hose, or some heater hose, and got all the cooling system squared away. So there's actually coolant in it now. I don't have anything leaking. That part of it's all done. So we'll get the intercooler in next. I did finally get the mounts finalized for it. Here's what I ended up with. So I just ended up taking a piece of angle iron and a piece of 1 3/8 square tubing and welded it together. I drilled my holes, I set my length. So this is going to actually work out really good. I put a little bit of rubber insulation. It's actually just a bicycle inner tube that I stretched over it. That way I'm not going to have the intercooler just setting metal on metal. But then, you know, it's basically just going to sit right here. The square stock sits about 1/8 of an inch up off of the frame. And I kind of already test fitted. The thing sits in there super secure. And then on the top, I just made a bracket that comes off of this hole here and then this mount. The reason I did that is so that way it basically secures here, but this just keeps it from wanting to twist and rock. And then I just secured across the top here. So behind the washer it's actually a 1/4 inch long piece of 5/8 heater hose with some 3/8 hose stuffed into the middle of it, and then a 5/16 bolt ran through it. So that way it's got a little bit of vibration dampening, but it's in there pretty secure. I mean, when that whole thing's bolted in, it's part of that core support. It doesn't move at all. So really what I'm going to work on now is getting the intercooler in. We'll get the mounts on and then kind of just work on getting this thing finalized. The way that these mounts are built, I actually have to set the intercooler in, then slide the mounts in, and then bolt everything into place. So I'll kind of show you guys here how that goes. All right guys, finally we're done. We got this intercooler installed. I'm kind of excited with how it fits. I'll kind of give you the rundown here of how my final mounting went. So you can see we got this mount in. It sits here nicely right underneath of the mount, and I'm not really sure how well it's going to pick up on the camera, but I have about 1/8 inch of clearance underneath it here. So I just ran 2 bolts. They're a 3/8 bolt, and the way that they attach is right above the body mount, so they're easy to get to. They're nylock nuts, so it should be in there nice and secure. This top mount, kind of the same thing. We ran 1 3/8 bolt right through here where it's just it's basically 2 pieces of sheet metal on the other side of this, and then again this one here, just to keep that from pivoting. Identical same thing on this side here. So again, we have our mount, 2 bolts. You have a little bit more room because you have this opening right here to get to the hardware. But again, I have about 1/8 of an inch of clearance. I really don't expect the frame to be contacting that, but it's just kind of nice knowing that I have that little bit of protection. And then you can see here the rubber liner protecting the intercooler, so we don't have metal on metal rubbing there. And then again, you can see all the way around we have good clearance. Nothing's going to be contacting our intercooler. Quite honestly, Banks template where you cut this down really low, not needed. I could have left like another inch of material. Not that it really matters, but it's something that you could have done. And then again on this bolt right here, this one is a little bit more tricky to get to. You can see it right there though. You just have a little bit more of the condenser bracket here in the way, but it's in, it's done. You can see where the transmission cooler sets. We have plenty of clearance the whole way across. Again, I do kind of have to tuck the hoses back a little bit. One issue that I am going to run into with having the transmission cooler mounted here, and I tried a couple different ways. I tried seeing if I could get up over here, if I can get over here, but this particular cooler, I'm not going to be able to mount the hood latch support there. So I'm going to just try and run it with just the mount and the latch on it, and I think I'm just going to kind of keep a close eye on it for the first little bit to see how it goes and see if I'm going to have issues. Really, the next thing that I want to work on doing is getting my intercooler piping in. These two pieces here, the one that goes from the intercooler up to here, and then this other intercooler pipe, and then the intake pipe that comes over here to the air filter as well. I still have to powder coat that, so that's something I'm going to be working on. This other piece, the one that goes from the Y down to the intercooler, is actually sitting right over here in my messy garage part storage room, whatever you want to call it. So I'll work on getting that one installed now, and then the other piece, which, you know, again, one right here still needs to be powder coated. The other one sitting right there still needs to be powder coated, and hopefully by tomorrow I should hopefully be able to get those in. So then the next part, which, you know, quite honestly, guys, I think I'm just gonna kind of end this right here, because just putting the intercooler piping in isn't going to be anything really hard to do. So I think I'm going to call this the end of episode 6. Thanks for watching. Please like, subscribe, comment, share. Let me know if there's any questions you have, anything that you see that maybe I could do differently. That's always appreciated too. Next episode, what I'm going to work on is doing the fuel system. So we'll work on getting the fuel conditioning module installed. We'll get the rest of the rear wiring harness in. I got to switch the fuel tanks out of it and then modify all the fuel lines. So kind of a lot of stuff that'll be going on that. And then I think the episode after that, we're going to work on pulling the dash out and switching out the dash harness. I have another steering column here that is a little bit nicer shape than the one that's in my truck, and it's already set up for automatic, so I don't have to go through and convert everything. I just need to clean it. So we'll be getting that installed, and yeah, that should be it. So this thing's actually really starting to come together. I'm getting really excited about it. I can't wait to turn the key on and get this thing running, because I'm just dying to hear it. So again, thanks for watching.